By the time I arrived, the backyard already carried that soft, manufactured glow. Family celebrations seemed to generate on their own. String lights hung between the trees. Glasses chimed lightly. My brother stood near the center of it all, smiling in that careful, slightly overwhelmed way of someone being congratulated every few seconds. I slipped into the space the way I always did, quietly, without announcement. My mother noticed me first, her expression brightening with something that resembled warmth, though I'd learned long ago how to distinguish warmth from performance. "Amy's here," she said, touching my arm as if guiding attention toward me. A few relatives nodded. Someone handed me a drink I hadn't asked for. The evening unfolded predictably. Laughter rose and fell. Stories recycled themselves. My brother's fiancée moved gracefully through conversations, still new enough to be treated with exaggerated gentleness. It happened between courses, when people had settled into that comfortable lull where attention drifts and comments float more freely. My mother was speaking to my aunt, though her voice carried just enough to include the table. "Well, now that Daniel's settling down," she said, "Amy will cover the house payments." The sentence landed with a strange softness, almost weightless at first. No emphasis. No build-up. Just a statement, as though she were mentioning the weather. For a moment, no one reacted. My aunt's smile held. My brother's fiancée blinked but said nothing. My brother stared briefly at his plate. I didn't speak. It wasn't shock exactly. More like recognition. A familiar internal shift, like hearing an old song you'd forgotten you hated. The assumption itself wasn't new. Variations of it had existed for years, small financial expectations framed as temporary favors, casual dependencies that somehow hardened into obligations. But this was different in scale and different in audience. I watched my mother continue, elaborating gently, comfortably. "She's always been responsible," she added. "It just makes sense." The conversation flowed around the statement instead of through it. My aunt nodded. Someone asked about honeymoon plans. A cousin refilled glasses. The moment dissolved without confrontation. Except it didn't dissolve inside me. I sat there, fingers resting lightly on the stem of my glass, feeling something less dramatic than anger and more precise than irritation. A tightening, but not unpleasant. The sensation of a line becoming visible. It struck me, not for the first time, how entitlement rarely arrives with aggression. It comes dressed as logic, as inevitability, as family. I thought of the paperwork sitting in my desk at home, documents my mother had signed months ago, the lease agreement, the deadlines, the clauses she had skimmed with faint impatience. At the time, it had felt like a practical arrangement, temporary, clean, a way to formalize what had previously existed in blurred territory. I had told myself structure would prevent exactly this sort of moment. My mother laughed at something my aunt said. My brother shifted uncomfortably. No one looked at me. Silence lengthened again, though no one seemed to notice its shape. Then I spoke. "No," I said. The word was not loud, not sharp. It simply entered the space. My mother turned, mildly confused, as if I had interrupted a conversation about seating arrangements. "I'm terminating your lease today," the table stilled in that subtle, unmistakable way human bodies do when social gravity suddenly changes. No gasps, no theatrics, just stillness. My mother's expression faltered, not into outrage but disbelief. "Amy," she said, voice lowering instinctively, "this isn't the time." "It is," I replied. My brother stared at me, eyes wide, not with anger, but something closer to recalibration. His fiancée looked between us, uncertain. My mother leaned slightly closer, her smile returning in a strained, private version. "We'll talk about this later." "There's nothing to discuss." The words surprised even me in their steadiness. No trembling, no emotional spillover. Just clarity, stripped of decoration. Around us, conversations had not resumed, though people pretended they might. A cousin shifted in his chair. Someone coughed lightly. Glasses remained untouched. My mother straightened, composure hardening. "You would do this here?" "I'm doing it now." The distinction seemed important. What followed was not dramatic, no shouting, no spectacle. My mother withdrew into a brittle silence. The evening resumed in fragments, voices returning cautiously, like guests re-entering a room after a disturbance they did not want to acknowledge. My brother avoided my eyes for a while. Later he approached me near the edge of the yard. "You could have waited," he said quietly. "I've waited for years." He nodded slowly, not agreeing, not disagreeing. Simply absorbing. When I left, my mother did not say goodbye. Driving home, I expected some surge of triumph, some cinematic release of tension. There was none. Only a strange, unfamiliar lightness. Not happiness, not relief, just the absence of something that had occupied space for too long. At home, I opened my desk. The paperwork waited exactly where I had left it. Calm, impersonal, unemotional, like the decision itself.